So now we'll look at a specific example of version control system. We're going to look at Subversion. And Subversion has been around for a while. It superseded the CVS, which was used a lot in software development. It was one of the first big version control systems that was used a lot through Unix and all different places. But had some shortcomings, and Subversion was the next iteration of that. It's an open source version control system. You can download it for free. It's an Apache project. It runs on Unix, Linux, Windows, runs everywhere. So you can interact with people who are running on a Unix machine or a Linux machine and on a Windows machine. You can work together. Has a console client called SVN. And so you'll probably hear me say SVN instead of Subversion most of the time. But there's also some graphical user interface clients which make life a lot easier. So you can manage your files without having to get to the command line and type lots of weird commands. You can use a graphical user interface to do that. Good one for Windows is called Tortoise SVN. It integrates into the File Explorer. So that you can easily manage your files. But we see a lot of the major IDEs will support Subversion and other version control systems like Git and Mercurial. So for example, NetBeans has a plugin that you can use, and it allows you just to set up a project and it'll manage all the version control for you, as well as doing the visual comparison when you get merge conflicts. And a lot of the modern IDEs will have this in them. So the way it works, Subversion works, it's a client-server architecture. So we have a central repository that we access, and we have our own sandbox that we work from, our working copy, if you like. So we'll update from the repository, and then we commit back to the repository and go around this cycle of updating and committing as we go through. So the repository contains all the historic data about the project. So it has the changelog there. And as the developers, we work from the sandbox. So it's our sandbox, we can play in it. So when we're finished with our changes, we need to commit them back, and then we update from the server, and sometimes we might get conflicts and we need to resolve them and then commit back to the server. So each file has a revision number associated with it, and we'll have lots of revision numbers as we work through it. So usually in this, they're whole numbers. So your first revision is 0, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and up they go in there. So it's fairly straightforward to use in that there's a central repository that everyone pushes to that central repository and pulls down information from it. So we commit to the central repository, and then we update from it, and everyone updates to that central repository. So this works by yourself. Away you go. You can have a local file system repository and commit locally, but that's it, right? What's better is if that repository is stored somewhere that's internet accessible, and then we can start to work with other people. So we could have a local one hosted on some local network drive where multiple people can work on it, or even better, it's hosted somewhere on the internet and lots of different people can work together on the same code base. And that's where we really want to be, is operating with other people on the internet and writing code that is version controlled in a safe and manageable and very free-flowing way. So, creating a repository, right? So you can create your own repository on here. Basically, the repository is just a directory that sits somewhere that you need to be able to access that. And the way we do it is with a command line tool called svn admin, and we can create a repository. So let's give it a go, shall we? I'll just start up a little command prompt, and let's see, let's navigate to c:temp. What have I got in here? SVN test. That sounds like a good place. Right, so there's nothing in here at the moment. So we want to create. So I've already installed the SVN command line tools. I installed Tortoise SVN, and I said yes to installing the command line tools. So if you want to play along on Windows, you might want to do that. You might find on Linux or on a Mac, you might already have SVN installed. Otherwise, you can go off and grab it and install it, and then you can come back and play along with me. All right, hopefully you're back now. Okay, so I've got SVN, what was it? SVN admin, create, and I say where I want to create this. So I'm just going to say I want to create it in something called SVN repo, and this should create the repository, right? So this server repository sitting somewhere. Ta-da! So at dir, there we go. We can see we've got SVN repo. So if I change directory into SVN repo, we can see there's a bunch of files in here. These don't look like standard coding files. Where are my Java files here? Well, they're not here. This is the central repository, and it has all sorts of ways of storing information as small as possible, and you should never modify this file. In fact, if we have a look at the README in here, it says this is Subversion repository. Use SVN admin and SVN look tools to examine it. Do not add, delete, or modify the files in here unless you know what you're doing. Right? I've never modified them in here, so just don't modify this one. So to use it, we use SVN admin, and this is where we check out our information from. So this is our repository. We'll dump out of here. So that's our repository. We want to check it out, right? That's the next part. So we've created it. It looks something a bit like this. So we can import projects. So if you've already got an existing project that you want to import into here, we can do that with an import command, and where it exists and what the project we want to call it. So we can import it into here. It says it'll open an editor and you can add notes. So adding log notes in here, that is what you want to do, is to add your comment to your whatever you're doing, your import. So my first import, and it'll complete and it'll save that log. And then you can import and access that on other machines. And that's the beauty of it, right? So it's already there for you. So what we really want to do is, once we've got that set up, is we want to check out the files that we're working on. So SVN stores the projects and files in a central repository, right? That's what we just created here. This is our central repository that we have. And we want to create our sandbox, or our working copy that we are going to work on. And we can use the checkout command to do that. All right, so let's try this out, shall we? So we'll jump into here. We'll start up another little command window. We'll cd into my c/temp into my same directory. Right, so this is my repo here, but I'm just going to create another directory just in the same spot. You can create it anywhere, but I'm going to create a new directory in here called my working copy. There it is. And let's go into here. So I don't have anything in this at the moment. It's my working copy. Now I don't use SVN admin at this point. I use the SVN command. So this is Subversion's command for working with our working copy. The first thing I want to do is check out. And so we can type check out, but because we do it a lot, I can also just put CO in here. So I want to check out. And if we're on the internet, we might do a HTTP and get it down from there, or HTTPS, or maybe it would be an SSH, so it's a secure shell through to somewhere. But this repository is residing on my local computer, so I'm just going to use the file approach. So to do that, I need file / and another / c:/temp / comp2741/svn test, and then where my repository is, which is svn repo. I hit enter. Right, and it says here, checked out at revision 0. Excellent. So that worked. And if I have a look, there's my svn repo that's checked out, because I just checked out the head of it. We'll go into there, dir, and there's nothing in here. Well, it's not quite true. There is something in here, right? So I haven't put anything in my repository, but if I have a look at all the files, there's this .svn file in here, and that .svn is the special directory that maintains all my local revisions and all the changes I've made that will use to do the commit back to the repository. So it's all the local changes I've made. Commit that back to the main repository. So that's where it maintains all that information. So don't modify anything in the .svn in here. So we jump back out of there. Oh, into my. So that's my svn repo. And now I have my working copy. So there we go, we've checked it out. So we've checked it out, we don't have any files in here, but we could, if we did, we could start editing them with whatever it is. So maybe we're using just, it doesn't have to be a big project, it could just be local little text files you're working on, or maybe it's a big NetBeans project or a IntelliJ project, whatever it is. Loves to work with text files that it can examine and compare. So some SVN functions won't work on the big binary files like JPEG images or executables and things like that, so it can't do any fine level merging on them. So it might be able to tell whether they're different, but it will just put a whole new copy into the repository rather than doing a change difference. And so if you put these images and binary files into your repository and you keep changing them a lot, they can get very large very quickly, your whole repository. So you don't get this fine level merging. So you want to think a little bit about whether I want to put images into the repository or not. So once we've made our changes, we issue an SVN commit, and it will commit it to the repository. And that's where the cool stuff happens, right? So we commit it and we get our code shared out to everybody. So let's have a look at this. So I've got, go into my working copy, and currently I don't have any files in here. So what I'll do is jump over here. Here's my working copy in my Windows Explorer, so I can see that. We can see the SVN repo, right? Don't modify anything in here. And here's my working copy. Here's my SVN repo. And you can also see that it has a little tick on it. And that's because I've got Tortoise SVN on here. So we can do a lot of these commands using Tortoise SVN as well in a graphical way. So I'll jump in here and I want to create a new text file. Let's call it hello. And what will we put in here? We'll put hello world. So I've edited that. It's now in my working copy. I come over to my directory here, and I can do SVN. And so to commit something, let's have a look. What was it to commit something? It was SVN commit to do that. So SVN commit. And if I just do SVN commit, it'll commit everything on this level. So SVN commit, SVN repo, and didn't seem to do much there. So what we can do is we can go to my actual repository, which is this the SVN repo here, and I can type something like SVN look tree and it'll give me all the file contents of this repository. It's currently empty. So I've done a commit, but it hasn't committed anything. Why is that? So we've got update as well, right? So we can do an update, but the repository has the information. So the two things we can do is we can commit and we can update. And when you do an update, this is where you might get conflicts, and then you need to use merge tools to do this. So what we need to do is we need to tell the Subversion program that we have a file that we want to put under version control. So just by having a file in the directory doesn't make it under version control. We have to actually add it to the version control system. So we'll jump back over here and we need to say svn add svn my svn repo. Actually, let's do it this way. Let's go into svn. Here it is. Here's my hello.txt. And if I say svn add hello.txt, it's added it. So it's got this A here, and it says add hello.txt. And now if I do svn commit, and I want to commit my hello.txt, I get an error. And it says commit failed. Why is my commit failed? And it's talking about that there's nothing set up to be an editor to add a message in here. And this is what I was talking about with how we need to put good messages into our commits. In fact, the Subversion client is very forceful about it and forces you to put a message in. If there's no editor, it really wants you to put a message in. So from the command line, we can put a -m and some sort of message, added the hello.txt file, and the file we want to add, we'll commit, we hit commit, and now it's happy. And now we're not at revision 0, we're now at revision 1. Yes. And if we go to our repo now, issue this svn look tree svn repo, it has a hello.txt. So that's now in my repository. If I have a look in this repository, I can't see it. It's not there. You could have a look through there, try and find it, but that file doesn't physically exist in here. It's stored in this this change log that exists, but you can't see it. So you can't modify it on the actual repository. You have to modify it on a working copy, right? So in here, here is my hello.txt, and I can edit it. So if I come back over here, save it, I can now commit it again. With a wonderful message. And now we're up to revision 2 in here. So we're working our way to doing some version control. And isn't that great? So that's all right. But what would be better if we had another person working on this as well. So start up another command window. This is just like another person working on this. So let's try it a different way, shall we? So we go into here. I'm going to go and create a new folder, call it my other. And here I can use this tortoise SVN. So I can say SVN checkout. Instead of a HTTP, I'm going to use a file. SVN test, and it is actually located in SVN repo. and I want to put it into my other. So if I come over here, well, actually, we'll go back to here and we can see we've got our hello.txt in here in the my other directory. ctemp and in this one we have hello.txt in here. So there we have our second version that we've checked out. Now I've done it on my local computer, but this could be on a different computer connected on a network to this computer. The repository, if it was in the cloud somewhere, we could be pulling this down from the cloud. But this is a different version of it on here. So for example, if I come into my other and create a new text document, and you can see it doesn't have a tick on it or anything because it hasn't been added to the repository yet, added to version control. Save that. And here's my other, and I can use svn add. And now it'll be under version control, and svn commit -m other document. Well, we need to give it a message. And we can commit that one. It's committed it, and dir, we have our two in here. And if we go back to this one, which is our first one, our first working copy, dir, there's nothing here. And if I do an svn update, then it finds that there has been a change. We're updated to revision 3, dir, I now have that other document in there. So we're able to move these, we'll commit to the repository and pull it down into a different working copy on here. So we can do commit, we can do an update, and we can add files to our repository. Something else you might want to do is remove files. And this is where it can get a bit strange. So adding, yeah, that works. But we're so used to, if I delete a file, so if I jump over here to my other, and I just delete a file from here, it's gone. But if I then move back to the my other in here, the IR, it's not there. But if I do an svn update, that file's back. So other document.txt is back. Even though I deleted it, it's come back because I didn't do a remove using Subversion, right? So it's still under version control, and in the repository, it still exists, and I deleted it. So delete hello.txt, it's not there. And if I do an svn update, it comes back there. So we have to remove it from version control for it to be removed. And there is, this is pretty good. If you accidentally delete a file, you can restore it from the repository. So that's excellent. But if we actually really want to remove it from version control, we need to use the svn remove command. And let's remove other document. And now it's been deleted from there. And we still need to do the commit because this has only happened locally on here. So now we need to do an svn commit and say deleted other document. Enter, and we have deleted it. So dir, it's gone from here. If we go over to our in here, it's also gone from there. But if we jump out here and go to my working copy SVN repo, it still exists because we haven't updated yet. So using Tortoise SVN, I can do an update. And it says here it's deleted that file. Say OK, and it no longer exists. So removing files, and this is also the same as moving files as well. We need to use SVN moving. So if we just move them through the file explorer, it'll try and put them back when you do the next update. We can also compare file revisions. So if it's been changed multiple times, we can do an SVN diff, and it'll show you the changes that have happened between versions in there. So let's try that out, shall we? So we'll go over to here. My other document doesn't exist anymore. Here's hello. Have a wonderful day. What is going to happen now? So we'll put that in, and I could come into this one, do an SVN update, make sure we're at the right place, and then we can do a commit. And now we're up to revision 5, and so I can do now what was the command? An SVN diff, and we can specify which revision numbers if we want to do it from particular sets. Otherwise it'll just do it to whatever the head is. So if I can go in here and I can say SVN diff -r from 0 to 5, we can see all the changes that have happened. So from revision 0, we hello.txt, we added it, we added these lines into here. So NetBeans also has a Subversion client that we can use, and if you download NetBeans, it's generally included in there in the version sort of 7, 8. NetBeans 10, the latest version, doesn't include SVN by default, so if you happen to download that one, you have to install it yourself and then connect up the command line Subversion tools in there. But once you've got it, you end up with a menu item that you've got Team Subversion, and then you can do all the checking out, update, commit, and all those things through your IDE. And most modern IDEs have this. So if you're using Eclipse or NetBeans or IntelliJ or whatever, then it should support some form of version control, most likely Git, and probably Subversion as well. So in NetBeans, it has a nice graphical user interface for doing it. So to specify where it is, we have a URL we can enter in, and we can enter in our username and password if we need to, if we're connecting to a secure remote location on there. Then we can specify what folder we want to check out from there. If it's blank, it will give us the whole repository, and head means I want the latest version that's there. And we say where we want to export that to, or where we want to have our working copy of it. So it's not exporting, where we're checking out. So it's going to check out to our working copy here. So this is the folder, and then this is where it'll put it into here. And what's really cool is that if there happens to be a NetBeans project on that repository, when you check it out, it scans for NetBeans projects after checkout and will load it up for you in your NetBeans projects. And so we can share our NetBeans projects, and if we do everything through NetBeans, it manages a lot of the processes. So adding files, deleting files is all managed by NetBeans and the Subversion client. So we don't need to write SVN add, it just adds the files for us as we add them to our, so we say create new class, that'll get automatically added, and then we can commit afterwards. So if we have a look at NetBeans, here's a NetBeans installation here, a few projects there. If I go over to team, we can see we have a Git, and we have a Mercurial, and we have a Subversion. So we can import a current project into a repository, and we can also check out a repository. So let's try this out. So we'll hit checkout, and let's see if we can try a file-based one. So we have file : C : /temp, remember off the top of my head, yeah, comp2741 /svn test /svn repo. I'm pretty sure that's the path. Now we don't need a username and password for this because it's just our local file system. We'll hit next, and so it's connected to the repository that we've got there. So if we had have typed that in incorrectly, we'll get an error message that it couldn't access it in some way. So if you get a message like this, then maybe you've typed it in incorrectly. So it's svn repo. It connects, we can browse, see what's in here. So all we've got is hello.txt, but you might have different levels in here that you want to check out from. We want to check the head, so this is the latest revision. And where are we going to put it? It's going to put it into comp2741 2019 code fun, and the working copy, because there's no directories, will be code fun. So let's actually make a new folder in here. We're in code fun, svn repo test, and we can say finish. And here's all the messages that are happening. So we're connecting, we're doing a checkout, file -head, depth, infinity force. It's checking it out, checked out to version 5. This was the only file in here. It says, do you want to create an IDE project from the checked out sources? Well, we don't have one, so we'll just say close here. And so now we've checked that out. So that works. But what's more exciting, we'll try this again. So that was off my local one. If we go to team again, Subversion, check out, and I've got a few different projects sitting around on here. So here's one that's on a HTTP server, sitting on a Flinders server. Got my fan and my password. Hit next. I can browse that. And this repository actually has a whole bunch of student repositories on here. And here's my repository, all my folders underneath it. And the one I'm checking out is this one called Graph. And we're going to put that into the same place, CodeFun SVN repo test. And this time, yes, we do want it to scan. We hit finish. You can see it's thinking. Now it's quite a number of files in here, including some larger text files. So it's going to take a little bit longer for this to happen. And we can see, where is it over here? It's waiting for this. Yes, please, open project. And here is the project graph. It's got a little sort of data symbol here saying that it's under revision in here. So it's checked it out, and now we've got the project. And we can see all the files that it's checked out for us. So it's under version control. We can make changes to this. So I happen to open up whatever this file is in here. I can come in, let's add the author, let's change that author to be Trent. You can see that there's been a change in here. And now if we right click, I can come down here, Subversion, and I can say I want to commit. I need to put a message in, fixed up the author name, what files are going to be committed, commit. We can see that it's been committed. We can see what revision number we're up to. We can see this is 1,224. Who did the commit and what the message was in here. In a similar way, if I create a new Java class in here, so if this would be, this is some graph analysis type things we're doing. So if it's called a depth first search, a new class in here, finish. It creates this new class in here. And we can see that it's green, saying that this is a new class that's locally new. And if I right click, Subversion, commit, we can see that it's found this locally new one and it's going to add it for us. Give it a good added depth first class, commit, and it's going to add and commit that file for us. Let's see which one is it coming up under here. Oh, there it is. You can see it added it, and then it's done the commit, the add and commit. So NetBeans handles more of this mechanisms and then the procedures that you've got to do, and hides it away a little bit, but it does add it and it does commit it for us. All right, so that's NetBeans. There's also Tortoise SVN, so we've seen a bit of that as well. So that's integrates into the file system, and it allows us to use Windows File Explorer to be able to manipulate it. There's other file browser based ones for other programming other operating systems. Mac has SCP plugin, but Tortoise SVN is pretty good if you're on a Windows machine. So we can right click and we can do all the wonderful things we can do. We can, where are we? We've got, so update and commit are here, and then there's a number of other things that we can do with our version control systems. And so generally, our repository layout that you might have, nothing is enforced, as you've seen. I've just made a file in the root of the repository, but generally what you might see is a trunk, which is, if you've only got one line of development, that's all you'll have is the trunk. But if you have different experimental versions, you might have branches. So you might have a branches, a tags, and a trunk directory in the top level. We'd check out from the trunk originally, and we'd work through that one. But if we want to do something experimental and not break the main line of development, we might create a branch and work through that. So this works really well, and I think it's quite easy to conceptualize that there's a central server, and I commit to that central server and I update from that central server. And that's an easy idea to sort of come to grips with. But there are some issues with it. If I don't have internet connection and that server is in the cloud, I can't do any version control. I can't commit. It'd be good to be able to do some local changes and commit that. Merging can be difficult through there. There's no local version control. So maybe I want to do some work and I think it's good for me, but it's not ready for the public. But the only way to do version control is to commit it out to the main server that everyone else then has to get a copy of it. So there's no local version control. And that would be really nice so that I can do some work, I can commit that code and then come back the next day and do some work, but I can't. I have to push it out to the public that everyone can use. So that's a bit of a downfall. And the other one is that there's only a single server, and that means there's only a single repository, a single place where all the changelog exists. So each working copy will have their changes, but the only single unified place is the server. So if that server goes down, it's in the basement, it floods, it gets corrupted, all your change history disappears. So if the server is lost, the repository is lost. So you don't lose your working copy. So you might be able to build it back together, but you lose all the change history that is there. So there are some issues with this client-server architecture.